le Dr Sidi Ould-Tah.
Dr. Sidi Ould-Tah, President of the African Development Bank.
Je vous demande d'applaudir les panélistes.
Please, a hand of applause for the panelists.
Merci, messieurs les présidents. Merci, monsieur le président de la Banque africaine de développement.
Your Excellencies, thank you. Thank you, Mr. President of the African Development Bank. We will have 2 rounds of questions, and time permitting, we will have a 3rd round. We have just 1 hour, and may I call on you to be very concise in your responses. Let me start with you, Dr. Sidi Ould-Tah. This is your first edition of the annual meetings in your capacity as president of this institution, elected with a historic mandate and clear commitment towards bold reforms. What is the most important change you are bringing to the operation of the African Development Bank, and how will African countries and people be aware of this and feel the difference? Thank you very much. Let me tell you how proud I am to be here in Brazzaville on the occasion of these annual meetings since my election and assumption of duty on the 1st of September last year. As I have been saying, we have a paradox, a major paradox in Africa, which requires strong and bold actions, and those 7 transformation initiatives which I'm embarking upon for the African Development Bank should enable us to make of the bank more nimble, faster, to better address the expectations of African people, but also a bank which is able to convene and mobilize all economic stakeholders, African finance, development finance initiatives, African savings, and also the private sector, starting with the African private sector as well as the international private sector. A bank which is open to partnership with export credit agencies, with international and continental investors, a bank which is open to the financing of African capital markets, but also serving as a bridge between African capital markets and international capital markets. And I think that, as we've seen the figures, Africa's development needs are huge. Financing needs are huge. And it's not only public banks which can provide all the resources, even though the bank is the premier development finance institution with the only AAA rating. We need more, and that's why we need to work with the entire African financial ecosystem, as well as with international investors and development partners, so that we have this scaling up in terms of mobilization of financing, which Africa's need in the win-win partnership and against an investment and trade logic, not only development finance logic, which granted has helped Africa a great deal in terms of achieving progress, but which remains largely inadequate in terms of meeting the expectations of African people. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President. Now, President Sassou Nguesso, as the host of the annual meetings and as head of the donor roundtable, what do you think is required to ensure that the Blue Fund for the Congo Basin is a standalone and autonomous financing mechanism beyond the pledges which will be made today? Let me first and foremost thank President Sidi Ould-Tah, as well as the officials of the African Development Bank, for the decision taken to hold the annual meetings of the bank here in Brazzaville, which is an honor for us. And we think that as we are just exiting a groundbreaking presidential election. The time has come for us to expedite our country's development, to fasten the move towards the development which we had announced to our people. And we have set our sights on the youths because we need to empower our youths with a bright future in terms of progress. The youth are actually at the very heart and core of our own program. And we think that the program which we will implement, which aims at scaling up agricultural development, ensuring local transformation and processing of our natural resources, the development of such basic infrastructure as transport infrastructure, the development of the energy sector, because without energy we cannot achieve development, you know. As well as developing links with neighboring countries. We are building roads to link our country with the Gabonese Republic. We are building Corridor 13, which will link up with Central African Republic and Chad. We are working towards building the road and railway bridge which will link us with Democratic Republic of Congo and even beyond. The road which will lead us to Angola, the development of the Point Noir Deep Sea Port Authority, the Congo Ocean Railway Link. We really think that with all those infrastructure, if we benefit from the support of the African Development Bank and other partners, we do think that with our human potential, with our youth who are well-schooled, because we give significance to the education of our youth. And for the benefit of our people, we have launched the program to build 13 referral hospitals, 4 of which have already been built and others which are at 70% completion. Then we will also boost the health supply and education for our people. Well, Mr. President, you are keen on this Blue Fund for the Congo Basin and saying that it is successful. Well, with respect to the Blue Fund, we will soon be having a round table. But what are you expecting? Well, we are expecting the financing of about 70 projects which are already bankable. And we are of the view that should our partners lend us assistance, then they would have also contributed to the sustainability and the preservation of this huge Congo Basin, and for the good of the planet also. We have 70 projects which are ready, and we will be discussing this at the round table to seek financial assistance. Thank you very much we'll be coming back to the project which you are referring to. Let me now turn to President Akansh Twadera. The Central African Republic is one of the wealthiest countries on the continent in terms of natural resources, but underfinanced. How do you crowd in long-term capitals instead of having short-term conditionalities? Thank you. Let me first and foremost convey my sincere thanks to President Denis Sassou Nguesso, as well as the government and people of Congo, for the reception which we have enjoyed since we touched foot on Congolese territory.
So indeed, thanks for this invitation. As you did mention, the Central African Republic is a country which recently exited crisis about 10 years ago, and so today we are marching towards development, and so we are reflecting on these stakes. It is the will of our people. It's true, you did mention we are one of the least financed countries, and so it is for this reason that our institution, the African Development Bank, is important for us, because we hope to get many projects from them, and I would like to commend the work they are doing. The African Development Bank is financing about 19 projects in the Central African Republic, and so one of the flagship projects is what President Sassou Nguesso mentioned. It is a regional project linking up Brazzaville, Bangui, and N'Djamena. So today, this project is the biggest portfolio of the bank, the African Development Bank in the Central African Republic. And let me use this opportunity to indicate that it is our wish that the disbursements for this project be fast-tracked, because today it actually accounts for 28% of the disbursements for projects in our country. And so you did ask how we are going to crowd in capital. Well, since 2024, we have a national development plan which takes on board various areas, notably human capital, basic infrastructure, but also agriculture. And so this national development program stands quite ambitious, but it reflects the needs of the people of the Central African Republic. This was presented in Casablanca, and it raised interest amongst our partners. However, today we are working in close collaboration with the African Development Bank to finance other projects. We'd also like to thank the African Development Bank for the energy program, notably Mission 300. And so it is our wish that we can get the financing for this project, because without energy, and I can see President Uta nodding. Yes, I discussed about it with him. And so as I was saying, this energy project stands important, and such projects need years to mature. But for us, we have urgent needs. As such, we think we could have some intermediary projects, as was presented yesterday. Yesterday, we did showcase solar kits, which could help our people who are in dire need of energy to get power for their phones and other electrical appliances. Also, there are other programs on agriculture. Mr. President, we will come back to that. Let me just turn now to your neighbor, President Oligui Nguema. Mr. President, Gabon has one of the lowest deforestation rates in Africa and among the highest forest cover per capita in the world. That's a genuine comparative advantage in any carbon or biodiversity finance framework. So how is Gabon monetizing that advantage, and what is preventing it from doing so at a greater scale? Thank you, Madam. Let me start by indicating that I'm honored to take part in these annual meetings of the African Development Bank. I would like to thank our Dean, His Excellency President Denis Sassou Nguesso, for the warm welcome and hospitality we've received here in Brazzaville, this wonderful city of Brazzaville. Gabon is a country undergoing transformation. We have several challenges in the energy sector, regarding water, sanitation, because energy or power is life. And so without power, we can't do much. I would like to use this opportunity to thank the president of the AfDB for what we've done together on sanitation and hygiene through the PIPA project in Gabon. The bank supported us. However, it's important to mention that Africa has huge potential. We have the Congo basin, which rich subsoil. But again, its basic commodities or raw materials are not being transformed. So today, what we have in place is to request from the African Development Bank and other banks to support us so we can best develop our raw materials. We should first trust our own bank before thinking of stretching elsewhere. It's true, you did mention we've got a vast diversity with the Congo basin, but we also hope that Western countries could also contribute by paying what Africa. This could help contribute to our economies. We have wonderful national parks. Gabon has 11 national parks. As you know, the country has a wide range of forest land. And so today, we would like to develop our forest while preserving our environment, so preserving nature. By doing so, we would like to create ecologies so as to attract tourists without destroying our environment and nature. And I think we've got the potential. We simply need to come together and see what we can do jointly with the African Development Bank and other banks which would love to join this initiative. We've got huge challenges, that's right. But as I often say, we can only succeed if we have peace. We are here today in Brazzaville because we've got peace. Here we are in a peaceful environment, and so we can't achieve developments without peace. Thank you, Mr. President. President Sidi Outa, you've listened to all the requests made from your neighbors. As such, mobilizing private capital at scale for Africa remains the continent's central financing challenge. So, does the African Development Bank have the leverage to shift that equation? Well, I think the bank has the notoriety and the mandate to contribute in upscaling resource mobilization for the continent. So we've noticed that we have about 4 trillion. We have a huge number of Pan-Africans who could invest in our continent, but again, we note that we have others who are looking for opportunities to invest on the continent, and so it is our role at the bank to work with all financial institutions as well as states so as to design bankable projects to mobilize necessary financing through appropriate mechanisms. It could be through shareholding, it could be also through mobilizing export credits, which stands as an important pillar, still not properly exploited by African countries, but which will help us build real ties with our development partners, but also with the non-regional member countries of the African Development Bank, which today are disbursing or providing huge resources to the bank. As such, we could also mobilize institutional investors and international private sector for them to come to Africa and to invest in Africa. So it is true, the bank has played several roles by aiding countries to improve the business climate and the business environment, but also to put in place appropriate mechanisms for guarantees. We have the board, which recently improved its shareholding in the African Trade Investment Development Agency at CD, and it will help Africa to have a Pan-African institution which helps to crowd in foreign capital in Africa, but also granting trust to those who wish to invest in Africa. Thank you, Mr. President. Over to President Sassou Nguesso. When referring to projects which you've launched, notably promoting agriculture, you did not refer to hydrocarbons. So it's true, you want to diversify the resources of your economy. So how are you mobilizing private finance? Are you expecting support from the African Development Bank to anchor that effort? So it was of my own will that I did not touch on hydrocarbons. Well, clearly because we would like to develop non-oil sectors. But that's it. The oil and gas sector are important sectors. We've launched liquefaction processes. It's true, I don't want to touch on that, the oil and gas sector, but I wanted to focus on other sectors, and I'd like to take an example. It is our wish for the coming years that we produce for Congo, for Africa, and why not the rest of the world? And would like to produce full fertilizers in Congo. Because Congo occupies a surface area of 50,000 kilometers, and Congo has huge potassium reserves, huge phosphate reserves, and also gas. As such, we have the possibility with the Point Noir deep sea port to produce complete fertilizers for Congo, for Africa, and why not the rest of the world? Because it is about developing agriculture. This is a different project. It's true we have other projects. We'll have the chance to come back on that, Mr. President. Thank you very much. Let me now turn to President Touadéra. The Central African Republic is one of the beneficiary countries of several Blue Fund priority projects. So what governance and security conditions need to be addressed before climate finance can be effectively deployed at the community level in the Central African Republic? So what provisions should be considered? ISTRA has presented our National Development Program, which comprises resource mobilization. And these are innovative resources. And so this mechanism would help us boost our capacity, our financing capacity to tackle challenges which our people face. But then, you know, the Central African Republic, and just to fall back on the question, because you not allow me complete last time, Mr. President, I had just requested that you should be straight to the point. So on the segment of the question, we need financing today the Central African Republic has huge potential. It is true, we've gone through hard times, but today we've got peace. There are several sectors which could be of interest to investors, which would like to invite to come and explore in the Central African Republic. It is a country with huge mining potential. We've got critical minerals which could be exploited and developed. Another sector which you referred to is the forest sector, biodiversity. And so today it still stands unexploited. As such, the Central African Republic is providing this opportunity to partners so as to carry out the activities. As such, we've got reserves. We've got good rainfall for agriculture. We've got arable land. And so we've got everything today which helps favor investment for our people. Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to turn now to President Oligui Nguema. President Oligui Nguema, Gabon's forest management helps us to provide, Gabon is a national advocate for ecosystem valuation. So what specific reforms to how carbon and biodiversity credit are priced and governed internationally? And so what would Gabon also propose so that the Congo Basin states are fairly compensated? Thank you, Madam Moderator. I think we should first point out that when we refer to energy transition, it doesn't mean Gabon no longer has oil. I keep on hearing that Gabon no longer has oil. We still have huge reserves, which could hold for the next 50 years. And so our future, in our view, is in the mining sector. We have the Belinga mine, which accounts for 5.5 billion tons of iron ore, and we can extract about 230 million on a daily basis. That is our challenge, and that is Gabon's future. We've been able to build a deep sea port in Gabon, and so I would like to invite investors here present and worldwide to come to Gabon so that together we can develop the deep sea port at Kobe so as to extract all the iron ore which we have. Also, the electric rail, accounting for 500 kilometers, is also one of our projects, and so there is huge investment potential. Biodiversity is not shoved to the back. We have today carbon credit. We created an agency, AGADEF, which is working to ensure that the carbon credit we have is valued. How do we sell this? How do we market it? And how it is beneficial for our economy? And so we are able to draw experience from the Djibouti or the Djiboutian model. So we learned from Djibouti, and we're doing that in Gabon. As such, we're trying to ensure that this money is gotten and reinvested. We have passed several laws. Our agency is recognized and is working normally. Also, we have revenue, which I wouldn't present here, but again, we've got huge revenue which we've collected and which are the fruits of that agency. Over to President Outa. The theme of this annual meetings is a call for Africa to strengthen or develop its development financing at scale. So how should African governments operate henceforth? I think for the African Development Bank Group, we are at the start of a new phase. For this new phase, the bank will increasingly act not just with development financing institutions or as a development finance institution, but is going to act as a platform which brings together stakeholders continent-wide. As such, we're going to work in close collaboration with government so that together we can have the best investment conditions for private investors from Africa, but also globally. we shall protect their investments, but also provide the facilitation for them to carry out business in the best conditions possible. As such, the bank will work to support African governments to improve their business environments. The bank will also work with partners on the continent from the private but also the public sector, so the bank can generate resources and meet the needs of the people of Africa, so that the huge financing gap which the continent is facing should be bridged effectively and efficiently through a win-win partnership. This will give Africa the possibility to finance its own development, but also it will help our partners to gain money from Africa, because we need to create conditions for our partners to make gains also. It will help us crowd in more foreign direct investment. Thank you, Mr. President. Over to you, President Sassou Nguesso. You were referring to the 70 projects a while ago, which you're going to, which was a key aspect in the donors roundtable. Do you have any key aspect which is up for discussion in this respect? A while ago, I referred to energy. And so it is not possible to achieve development without energy. As such, the Congo Basin has huge potential. We have hydropower. We have solar power, which we could generate, for countries of the Congo Basin, but also beyond the Congo Basin. We can also generate electricity. And so I think in the electricity sector, there is a huge potential, especially with the Congo River. We've got the Inga too, and we are working jointly with the African Development Bank in this regard. And so I think we need to develop projects which would help us generate electricity. In addition, there are other projects, but I think as a priority, we should favor energy or power generation, and we should use our agro-industrial potential which is existing. Because, for instance, if we want to protect our fauna, we need to develop, or we need to work on livestock management. So how can we request of our people to protect boas, to protect our elephants? How can our people get other sources of proteins if they don't develop their agriculture? As such, it would be quite difficult to ask the people not to hunt the wildlife. We've got cattle. Mr. President, I hope you're not encouraging wildlife hunting. Well, no, what I'm saying is we need to actually support and help the people so that they can properly carry out cattle breeding. And they'll be able to get sources of proteins. If we don't support them, then they would look for alternative sources. If we don't support them, then they're going to go hunting the buffaloes and elephants. As such, I think we need to help our people to turn towards agriculture, to turn towards livestock rearing, and also to provide power to them. Thank you, Mr. President. We've gotten your message. President Arkan Stradera, for a landlocked country like the Central African Republic, what are you expecting from regional banks and also the African Development Bank in terms of support? We already have an important project with the AfDB. It is CD13, which I had mentioned a while ago, but this is not sufficient. It is just one of such projects to help open up the Central African Republic. But just as President Sassou Nguesso mentioned, as a country, we need power supply. We need huge power supply for our people. Without huge power supply, we would not be able to achieve development for our country. As such, we support the Mission 300 initiative because we have hydropower opportunities, notably through Lobai, which would help generate power for the Central African Republic. In addition, there are other projects. We began the PV, the photovoltaic project, but it doesn't cover the entire country. For landlocked areas, we are working with the African Development Bank. We have several road stretches, notably Brazzaville, Bangui, but also we need to work on the Bangui-N'Djamena stretch, which will help open up locked areas. More so, we have other infrastructure projects. We have projects on for the agricultural sector. As such, we are requesting support from the bank. We've already presented this in our National Development Plan. Thank you, Mr. President. One last question for you, President Oligingema. You took office with the aim of rebuilding institutions. You have you're working to tackle 40% of youth unemployment and to diversify an oil-dependent economy. So in a fragmented global financing environment, what are the most realistic sources of capital for that transformation? Thank you, Madam Moderator. I think huge reference has been made to our rich subsoil and wealth, but we are forgetting something, which is very important, and that is human capital. Human capital comprises our youth, and the youths are looking at us today. That is Africa's wealth. Should I say the best wealth we have in Africa? And so without human capital, without these labor force, how shall we transform our raw materials, basic commodities? We need to train, we need to train engineers, we need to train staff in hotel management for them to take the lead later on. Yesterday I was listening to our Dean, President Sassou Nguesso, who was here referring to Pan-Africanism. But if Pan-Africanism works, it's because some people believed in themselves. And so for the youth, which is growing, we need to believe in our youth. We need to give them the opportunities to succeed. And so if we grant them such opportunities, then we would simply see as development slips in smoothly. We wouldn't have to stretch our hands elsewhere. We'll be able to search and explore within Africa. We can develop our own resources with the huge human capital we have on the continent. Thank you, Mr. President, for your response. I'd like to thank Your Excellencies, the Presidents, for your responses. But before you leave the stage, you heard from the African Development Bank President his goals. And so the African Development Bank is writing a new page in its history. As such, I would like to ask if there is a word of advice you would like to share with him today. What will that be? And let this assembly stand witness. Mr. President, a single word, please. What can you tell President Sidi Outa? Well, I'm waiting for him to listen to me because he seems to be talking with the president next to him. Mr. President, and now he's listening. One word as an advice. I will simply say, we trust you. President Touadéra, over to you. One word. I would like to request that he brings his offices closer to countries, because often we face difficulties in fast-tracking priority projects in our countries. President Oligingema, over to you. Well, my advice to the AfDB president is to be brave and not be discouraged in what he is doing. He knows best our economies compared to all other banks. As such, he is the best fit to support us here in Africa. It is our bank, as he did mention a while ago. Your Excellencies, Presidents, thank you very much. We've come to the end of our presidential panel. Please give a round of applause for your distinguished panelists. I would like to invite you to please rise for a group picture. Thank you.
Non, non, non. Si vous voulez. D'accord. Merci, Monsieur le Président. Merci infiniment.
Thank you very much, Mr. President.
Monsieur le Président, merci beaucoup. Merci, Monsieur le Président. Merci, Monsieur le Président. Merci.